What is going on, guys? Welcome back, our MMA Show. True to our word, the featherweight fight just finished between Zabit Magomedsharipov and Calvin Kattar. Me and Jimmy are here to talk about it. You know, I really like this fight, Jimmy, and I want to say first off, I wish it was 5 rounds, not 3. I felt like there was a bit of a feeling out process early that we would see in a 5-round fight, and I really liked a lot of what Calvin Kattar did, mixing up knees and kicks, but he really couldn't get inside. And one of the things that really impressed me was how incredible the setups were from Zabit. And, it's almost like you have to react to it. You can't think. You just have to instinctively go. And it's hard to land on a guy like that. And you certainly can't, volume him back or try to control the pace. I think one of the more telling times of the fight was at the end of the second round. Calvin Kattar tried a spinning back fist, and basically Zabit just stepped back from it. And we didn't see that from the other side when the high-level striking was happening.
Well, that's incredibly true. But another thing that I think kept Calvin Kattar on the outside is Zabit, when he switches stances, his punches don't change. Like a laser jab, he switches stance and then throws a laser jab. He throws a laser power shot, switches stances, and throws a laser power shot. When you try and get inside based on where the power shots are coming from and where the jab is coming from, the nature of the punches don't change when he switches stances, which he does a lot. So usually when someone switches stances, Dominic Cruz once told a teammate of mine, he said, when somebody switches stances, hit them, because defensively they're thinking about where your power shot's coming from too. It changes everything for them, and they need to make an adjustment. So that's when you get offensive. You could tell from the way Zabit was shooting his punches, it didn't matter which stance he was in. He had a perfect control over how his punches were going out and coming back, so there are no defensive lapses. That's really hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's impeccable timing. He always has something in front of you when he's switching those stances. Right. One of the things that I also took note of was the takedowns. I mean, I almost, I know we talked about he's certainly capable on the ground, and both of these guys wanted to stand and trade. I thought Kattar did a great job of protecting himself on the scrambles. I think he really only went down 3 times in the fight, aside from the end, which I really don't count. We'll talk about that in a moment, but it almost looked to me like he was kind of just using those takedowns kind of half-heartedly as a setup. And I thought that was really interesting that he continued to stick through that both of the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, and the great thing about his takedown technique is you saw that kind of snatch single leg he went for. They don't cost a lot of energy. I grab the single leg. All right, Kattar's got good balance. All right, I push it off and I start over again. He's not the kind of person to commit with his hips and his whole body and not get it. It's an easy one. It's a trip. It's a foot sweep. It's these kind of things. And we talk about Sambo being big in Eastern Europe and Russia, and part of that is foot sweeps and judo and that kind of thing. So his takedowns are extremely efficient. You won't see him commit his entire body if he doesn't think he's going to get it. It's a quick, easy versus like the jab of a takedown. If it doesn't work, no problem. He just gets right back to it. So it's easy for him to use those as setups because he never gets caught underneath with his opponent on top of him.
So the dog agrees as well.
The dog totally agrees.
I will say, the first 2 rounds are a vastly different tale than the third round. And I think that's where at least a lot of my thought process of is, man, what if this was a 5-rounder comes into play? You don't often see an actual urgency, right? We always hear the same rally cry from a coach or a corner, but you really don't see a guy come out and just 100% try to rally late. The only thing that Kattar didn't do in that rally was he wasn't cutting him off. He was kind of just chasing around the cage, and I was a little bit surprised because it didn't seem like he was tired. But even in a way, when he could have went out and cut those angles and pushed that pace, he still kind of just didn't do it. And props to Zabit, he didn't actually go for takedowns. I think a lot of guys, you look at, the last 2 minutes of a fight, you're winning, but, there's starting to be a late rally. You would just want to go over the ground and just kind of stall the fight out. And the only time he did that, truthfully, was, I don't want to say it was an error because, Calvin Kattar was just selling out. He goes for a flying knee, and kind of gets caught in it and then goes down on the ground. But even when they were down on the ground, Kattar off his back was still extremely active.
Oh, Zabit was hanging on for dear life. For dear life. Make no mistake, in that last round, Zabit couldn't see the end fast enough. He was looking up at the clock. He was literally running. Okay, there is moving backward to set up your opponent and footwork traps and all this stuff. And then there is fleeing, and he was doing a lot of fleeing. And I was surprised. I don't remember who the ref was. I'm surprised we didn't see a little warning there. Hey, quit running and fight. I mean, it was to that level for me. It was not a setup kind of running. It was a, man, I don't want to be here. I'm out of gas. This guy is turning it on. I have won the first 2 rounds. I am just putting this one in the bank. And then on top, if you know any jiu-jitsu, when someone locks their hands under your butt on top in open guard, they can't do anything. They're literally holding on to your waist, trying to stay on top and kill time. Look, we've all been there. Many a jiu-jitsu fight, I've been like, oh my God, I'm out of gas. Screw this. I'm up 4 points. I'm just going to hold on here. That's how you do that. You know, and then Calvin Kattar knew that and was pushing him back with his feet to expose his head and throwing punches. He just couldn't get enough distance to get the finish in the amount of time he had left. Now, one thing I like to always bring to mind is in a 3-round fight, your pacing is different. I don't know if Zabit would have tried to expend that much energy in the first 2 rounds if this had been a 5-rounder. So I would have liked to see 2 more rounds of it. He might have fought a very different kind of fight, but we're seeing an inkling of, or not an inkling, a lot of evidence of tendencies and issues that might cause him problems as he moves up the rankings and takes on better talent. Although Calvin Kattar, I think, did a phenomenal job, but it doesn't get easier from here on out.
Yeah, it actually was going to be my next point to you. I mean, when I look back at the fight as a whole, both of the guys, I mean, like we talked about, it's almost, a crime that, if you get Calvin Kattar outside the top 10 here, and this traditionally isn't what we see from, a top 5, top 10 pairing. I mean, this literally felt like, and it very well could be, 1 or 2 fights away from a title fight. We alluded to that in the full podcast when we broke down this card. I don't really have any negative takeaways for either one. I do, like I said, feel like the 5-round fight could have been different. I understand exactly where you're coming from a mindset of, how you dictate your pace and dictate your energy. But at the same time, Calvin Kattar was there for 3 rounds too. It just happened to be that he looked like the much, much stronger fighter in the 3rd round. And I don't think a lot of it was just traditionally what we see when somebody is defensive about trying to protect the lead.
Yeah, also, Zabit's style, and it's the same criticism you can have of Conor McGregor, explosive, accurate, versatile. It's hard to keep your gas with a style like that. I mean, he's a big guy, 6'1.5", a lot of range, big frame for this weight class. A spinning kick from a guy like that takes a lot of energy, and he tends to throw a lot of that stuff. He tends to be kind of all over the place. So it's one of those things where his style and his frame just may make 5-round fights where he paces himself well very difficult to do. And it doesn't mean he's necessarily out of shape or has to change something around. And a lot of people are saying, oh, he trains with Frankie Edgar, but his gas isn't good. How is that possible? It could be his style is just going to be tough in 25-minute fights. If you remember Jose Aldo, generally would win 3 rounds and then lose at the end. Just his style didn't lend itself to 25 evenly paced minutes. It just didn't work that way. And Zabit could have that problem where he's explosive and athletic and powerful and all this fun stuff. But the downside is it's hard to get 5 solid rounds of that.
Well, we certainly appreciate you guys checking this out, and we're glad we could work a little bit today to get you some extra content. Of course, we're going to have a full podcast breaking down this whole card. Some people had asked, since you mentioned on the last one, how they get mentioned as a Podbean follower. All you have to do is go over to Podbean. They are the syndicate of our podcast. You follow our podcast there. They've got an app that makes listening to the show very easy. We're actually one of the top MMA shows they have. So if you can't find us, I don't know what to tell you. Just type in the word MMA. You don't have to go my name, Jimmy's name, the name of the show, any of that stuff. You will find us. We appreciate you guys checking it out. And obviously, if you do mention that you follow the show, or rather, if you do follow the show, we will mention you on the air. Words are tough, Jimmy. So with that said, we appreciate you guys checking this out, and we will be back very shortly with more commentary.